Hi everyone, it's Shelby here. Welcome back to A Little Literary Love. So today I'm going to do things a little bit differently than I've done in the past, where in the past when I did my wrap-ups, I did it for the whole month of like what I read during the month. But my last video was so long and they take so long to do that I thought I might split this up from now on. You can let me know how you like this, if you like this better, or if you like the old way better. But I thought I would do this like during around the mid part of the month, do a wrap up for what I've read during that, and then my end of the month wrap up will be from like this point onwards for the rest of the month. So let's get into the video and talk about all the books that I've read so far in the month of April. Okay, so I think I'm going to do this by just going in the order that I read these books instead of in the past where I did it by the star rating that I gave. I think this is just going to be a lot easier on myself. And yeah, we're going to do it that way. So the first book that I ended up reading in April was Happily Letter After by Vi Keeland and Penelope Ward. I ended up giving this one 3.5 stars. This is about this girl, she's like a journalist, and she ends up she does this column during Christmas that's like a letter to Santa, and she'll like kind of write back to these like kids, and she gets a letter to Santa like in the middle of summer. And she finds like forming a connection to this child that she got the Santa letter from, and she tries to fulfill some of her wishes. And then in the meantime, she ends up accidentally sort of going to this kid's like house, like walking by where this kid lives, and the dad ends up mistaking her for their new dog trainer, and she just like goes with it. And then it's kind of about her relationship with the kid's dad. So I gave this 3.5 stars. This was okay. I did have some problems with the girl and how her interactions were with the kid, and how she just like kept would show up and then she wasn't honest with them that no, she wasn't their dog trainer, and just some of the things that she did I just found really creepy, and I didn't really care for that. But then some of the interactions with the kid was really cute, and it's a single dad. I don't know. If that one had been in the book, I think I might have liked this a little bit better. There were some pretty crazy like plot twists going on with this book. But overall it was a pretty enjoyable read. Okay, so then the next book I actually read a physical copy of is Texas Destiny by Lorraine Heath. I read this for the Rake Appreciation Society book club. This is their pick for April. This is the first book in a Texas, I think it's the Texas Trilogy series by Lorraine Heath. And this is about this girl. She's like a mail order bride. There's this guy Dallas. He moved out west, towards West Texas, to try to make a name for himself and have this big I think he's ranching empire or something or other. But his lifelong goal is to get married and have a son so he can pass on all of his, have an heir to pass things on to. So he writes letters to this girl, Amelia is her name, and she agrees to come out and marry him. But their nearest train station is 3 weeks away, by travel wise, to get to their place. And Dallas is gonna go get her, but before he can, he ends up getting in an accident, and I think he breaks his leg or something. So he sends his brother Houston to go get her. Now usually I guess during these situations, if anybody else would have gotten her, he would have been oh, she'd probably fall in love with him and get married to that guy. But Houston is really scarred. I think he only has one eye. He wears an eye patch, and he has a lot of scarring on his face because both brothers ended up fighting in the Civil War, and he got pretty severely wounded from that. And then he also likes to kind of keep to himself. he's not really known to like dally with like women. So he's pretty confident that he can send his brother out to go get this girl. But of course, in the meantime, they have to, a lot of stuff happens on their travel to the ranch. A lot of things, like unforeseen things happen, and then they also start to form a relationship. So that's what this one is about, and I really enjoyed this one. I think I gave it 4 stars. I thought this was really cute. I thought Houston was super sweet. This was really cute, and I really enjoyed this one. Then the next book that I read was A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. This is definitely not my norm that I would usually read. This is a young adult like mystery book. This is about this girl for her like senior project in school. She's in high school. She decides that she wants to solve a mystery of this murder that had taken place in her town like 5 years ago. This girl in her senior year went missing, and it was presumed that her boyfriend killed her, and then he ended up committing like suicide the next day. But she is fairly familiar with the guy who they think killed her, and she doesn't think that that was possible just from how she knows him. So she wants to investigate and try to figure out what actually happened on the night that this girl disappeared. It's presumed that she was murdered and she was killed, but she kind of goes on to try to figure stuff out. So I listened to this on audiobook, and I really enjoyed it because there were different narrators, and there's a few bits where she like takes a tape recorder and like records like some of her interviews with different people. So that was really cool with the audiobook format. I really enjoyed this one. I gave it 4 stars. I really liked the mystery, and I liked the journey that we went through trying to figure out what actually happened that night, what happened to these people. It was pretty sad because there was a lot of racism and stereotyping because the boy was, I think, Indian maybe? I know he's not white. And there was some stigma racism that went along with that, especially because his younger brother also was wanting to try to investigate because he didn't think this guy did it. But, you know, everybody was closing their doors in his face, and he couldn't really get anywhere. Unlike what our narrator of the story, she's actually able to get a little bit further than he ever could with the investigation. So this was really good. And I've heard I know there's a second book, and I think there's going to be a third book. I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to continue reading on in this series, just because I feel like this one could have been left as a standalone, and I think it wrapped everything up fairly well. So, and I'm satisfied with how it ended. So I'm not really sure if I'm going to pick up the next one. Next one that I read was Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. So I'm pretty late to the game with reading this book because everybody and their mother has read this one. This one is about this girl, Chloe Brown. She ends up having sort of like a near-death experience, which kind of jolts her. She starts thinking about her life and what she's doing, and it prompts her to want to get a life because she, at that point in time, she was like living at home with her parents. She wasn't really doing anything. So now, she's like moved out, and she's in an apartment by herself, and she butts heads with the landlord. Is that what it's called? Yeah, landlord of the apartment like building that she's in, and his name is Red. And yeah, they kind of butt heads a lot because she doesn't like how like nice he is to everyone, and he sees her as being really like snooty. But then of course they start to form a relationship. So I did give this 4 stars. This wasn't, for the most part, I enjoyed this. I really didn't care for Chloe's character. I found her character to be annoying. I kind of agreed with Red's perspective in the beginning. He thought she was really snooty and uppity, and that's how she kind of came across to me as well, which I didn't care for. But then you kind of realize that she's doing that more as like a front to disguise the pain that she's in. So that's kind of why I gave this 4 stars, because I did like the representation in this. Chloe has fibromyalgia, which is a chronic illness when she's in pain a lot of times. So I can kind of, once you figure that out, and I liked how it was shown and how it was discussed in this book, and that how, you know, even though she has a chronic illness, she can still try to do things that she wants to do, but then she can also, you know, have a sexual relationship if she wants to. But yeah, I could kind of understand why she acted the way that she did a little bit more, but at the same time, I wish she didn't. I didn't really care for her. I did like Red. I thought Red was really sweet. He kept saying he thought she was like super amazing, even though she kind of annoyed him at times. And he thought she was like a super strong woman, and he was really cute, and I liked that. But there are some pretty funny moments in this book as well. So I did enjoy this a lot, and I will probably continue on in this series. I think the next one is her sister Danny's book. Yeah, I don't know when I will read, but I do plan on reading the rest of the series at some point. Okay, so the next one that I read was Texas Glory, which is the second book in the Texas Trilogy series by Lorraine Heath. I don't actually own a physical copy of this one, but I went ahead and finished out the trilogy, so I did also read the next one. But the second book in this series is about Dallas. So he's the one in the first book where he has the mail order bride. So in this one, it's been a few years later. He owns this land, and he's starting up a town by his ranch, and there's more people moving in to where they're located. And there's some people, I think they're the McBride family, and their family and him kind of butt heads a lot, because they have a bunch of disputes over land where the McBrides think they own part of some land that Dallas actually owns, and they, butt heads a whole lot. So to try to settle some of their disputes, he, from the first one, you kind of know him, that he really, really wants to get married, and he wants to have a son. That's like his whole life goal, is to do this. So he kind of makes a deal with them that, hey, I will let you use part of this land where this river, I think, runs through, if you let me get married to your daughter. So this guy, marries his daughter off, and that's kind of their relationship. It's with, I think her name's Cordelia. I did give this also 4 stars. I enjoyed this one. There was a lot of backstory with Cordelia. So her father was abusive to her mother, and she ended up taking care of her mother when he hit her. I don't remember if she fell down some stairs or something, but she was basically an invalid and couldn't take care of herself anymore. So Cordelia took care of her until she ended up passing away. So she grew up in this household and was taught to kind of be afraid of men and to be quiet, and she's pretty timid too. And Dallas doesn't really know what to do with her, because she's not really what he's used to. But I did kind of like how the relationship grew, that she, slowly but surely grew to trust him, and she was interested in his business side of things, and he was trying to help her, and he thought it was really cool that she wanted a part in some of the things, and taking care of their town and helping it grow and build. So I liked the slow aspect of their relationship, building, and her learning to trust him and watching that grow. There are some other trigger warnings in this book, but I'm not going to mention them. If you're interested in reading this, you should just and you're worried about the trigger warnings, just look them up. But I don't want to mention them because they do kind of ruin some plot points that happen in this book. So yeah. Then the next one is going to be Texas Splendor, which is the third book in the Texas Trilogy. And I also gave this 4 stars. So this is about the third brother, Austin. And you've kind of seen him in the other books. Something happens at the end of Texas Glory, and he ends up going to jail for something. something that he didn't do. And so this one is his story, and he's finally getting out of jail, and he had kind of like a sweetheart before he went to jail. And he gets out and he's going to try to find her, and he's wanting to try to rekindle what they had before he went to jail. But then he finds out that she's gotten married and has kids now, and so she's not gonna be with him. So he's pretty upset about that. So he ends up deciding that he's going to try to get his life back together, and he wants to go try to find the person that actually committed the crime that he was accused for, because he did not commit this crime. So he's going to travel to the city of Austin and try to find this person. And on the way, he ends up running into and having to stop at this house farm sort of, and runs into Lori, and she's the only person that lives in this house, and she's like pretty scared of him at first because she's a woman by herself, you know, it's the Wild West basically, lots of bad things can happen. And they end up forming like a relationship. So this one was really good. I really liked this. I liked Austin's character, and I liked Lori too, because she's, you know, living on her own. She's pretty badass, and I like that. There are a lot of trigger warnings for this one. So Lori's past, she actually watched all of her family, her mother and father and younger brother, get murdered in front of her. And she also, almost, this person that did this to her tried to kill her as well, but when he like shot her, it missed, you know, vital organs or whatnot, and she ended up surviving. But she lived through this big trauma, so she has a lot of like past trauma that she's trying to deal with. So, you know, just kind of keep that in mind. But otherwise, this was a really good one. There are also some pretty good like plot twists to this one that I really enjoyed. So I think you should read this one because it was really good. Okay, then the next one I read was Black Sunshine by Karina Halley. So this one is this was just released not too long ago. This is a paranormal romance, which is not, for the most part, what Karina Halley writes. She usually writes the more contemporary romance. This is about this girl, her name's Lenore, and she's like turning 21, and on her 21st birthday, I don't remember if it's on the day or like maybe like right after her birthday, she ends up getting kidnapped, and she finds out that she's kidnapped by this vampire, and she starts to find out that a bunch of like paranormal things are real, and then she also finds out that she is half vampire. So that's basically like the start of this book. There's a lot of other things going on, you know, a lot of world building, the hierarchy of like the vampires, and there's also witches and how they clash, and a lot of different like lore going on. I gave this 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. If there's anything that comes out, it's like a vampire book, I'm all about it. I love vampires. This wasn't exactly what I was looking for when I heard it was like a vampire romance, but I did still enjoy it. There are a lot of dark elements to this book. They are vampires. There are a few people that get murdered in this book. There are some pretty steamy scenes, blood play, because like I said, they are vampires, so that's gonna happen. But yeah, so I did really enjoy this. Now the next 4 aren't actually like books, they're more short stories, and they were erotic short stories that I ended up reading for a vlog that I did. And I'll end up linking that down below and probably putting it up in the cards or something. So I read The Ultimate Sensation. This was kind of a Sasquatch, King Kong, a monster, erotica, something or other. Ganged by my gilf neighbor's garden gnomes. And it's basically what the story says. This woman gets gangbanged by garden gnomes. Chief Hardhorn, this was an orc erotica, and then I also read Rescued Mermaid Lover, which is a mermaid erotica. So again, I read this for like don't remember what it, like weird Kindle erotica. Yeah, I don't really know how to like rate those, and I don't really like adding erotic short stories to like my Goodreads because I feel like that's not fair to have those count towards my like reading goal. And I don't really know because it's not like a full-fledged like plot, like full like story. It's mostly just like here's a scenario and some sex, and that's about it. But these are weird. I think I don't know if I really liked one above any of the others. They weren't really my like go-to like forte. But anyway, if you want more of my thoughts on these, like I said, that other video will be linked down below. The next one that I read was The Outlaw and the Lady by Lorraine Heath. I was just kind of in a Lorraine Heath mood. And I kind of want to read all of her like backlist. I have a lot of her books, but I just haven't really read them. I think the Texas trilogy may have been her like first books that she wrote. But anyway, so I had this one on one of my like audiobook apps. So I listened to this one. This one I gave 3 stars. This is pretty good. This is about this woman. She's like out in town on like a midnight stroll, and she ends up running into this guy robbing a bank, and he is like this infamous bank robber named Lee Raven. And because she runs into him, he's like, oh crap, she's gonna rat me out. So he ends up kidnapping her and taking her with him so that she can't rat him out too. I don't think they actually have police in the Wild West. I guess it would be the sheriff or like a Texas Ranger, I think. Anyway, so he kidnaps her and takes her with him, only to find out that she's blind and she couldn't have possibly seen who he is. But he doesn't want to take any chances. And then they end up forming like a romance and relationship, and there's some other like plot twists that go on in this one. This one, I didn't enjoy this one as much as like the Texas trilogy, but this was a pretty good book. Yeah, I don't really know what else to say with it. I did enjoy it. And then the last one that I read, I actually just finished this like the other night, was 3 Little Mistakes by Nikki Sloan. This is the 3rd book in her Blindfold Club series. I think it was originally supposed to be a trilogy, but then she's got like, I think 6 books in this series now. So I actually read the first 2 books a year or 2 ago, and I just hadn't continued, and for whatever reason I was just kind of in a mood to like read some more Nikki Sloan. Nikki Sloan is an author. She like writes pretty good books, but then she also is more of like an erotic romance author. I feel like her books aren't strictly erotic. They do have some romance to them too, but she has some pretty dang steamy sex scenes. So the Blindfold Club is owned by the main hero in this book, Joseph. He runs this club. It's basically like a brothel. It's illegal. Where these men can come in and negotiate on all these women that they want to have sex with, but the women are blindfolded. They can't like see who's having sex with them, and they can like, you know, bid for different things that they want to do to the women or have the women do to them, but the woman is blindfolded the entire time, so she can't see who the guy is. So it's him, and he is at one of his other, he has some like legit businesses. He owns like a bar, I think, and some like restaurants or something. And he ends up running into this girl at one of his, I think his club. And there's like an altercation that happens at the club, and she kind of gets in the crosshairs of these two guys fighting. So he's like, oh, I want to make sure you're okay and, you know, take you home. And they end up forming like a relationship because he thinks she's really attractive and she thinks he's attractive, and she's interested in, there's a lot of BDSM in this too, and she's kind of interested in the lifestyle. So he's like, yeah, I'll like introduce you to it. But then there are some things that he keeps some things from her. Like he finds out that she is the daughter of one of his patrons at his blindfold club. And he's like, oh, this is not good. So that causes some trouble. But I gave this 4 stars. I did really enjoy this. This was very steamy if you like more steamy reads. And it, like I said before, it does have BDSM elements in it. This was really good. I really enjoyed this. I enjoyed their relationship that they start building. I didn't really care for him lying to her and keeping secrets from her. That's one of my like least favorite tropes, but I did still really enjoy this one. So there we go. So those are all of the books that I read for like the first half of April. Let me know if you like this a little bit more. I kind of like it more because I think this video isn't going to be like an hour long like my last one. But yeah, so if you like this, make sure you hit the thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and I hope to see you all in the next one. Bye guys.